Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start today with this specific feeling.
Mhm.
It's a feeling I think a lot of us are having right now, whether we say it out loud or not.
Right?
It's this weird mix of, I don't know, exhaustion and skepticism. You open your newsfeed or LinkedIn or whatever, and you see another breakthrough.
Another one.
Another model that can write code or generate video that looks just like reality or diagnose some rare disease better than a team of specialists. And instead of that sense of awe, part of you just wants to roll your eyes.
It's the fatigue of the hype cycle. We're just saturated.
Exactly. It's adaptation exhaustion. But here's the thing. The defense mechanism most of us use to deal with this, and I know I'm guilty of it, is this historical anchor. We say, look, everyone calm down. We've seen this before. We survived the printing press. We survived the steam engine. We figured out the internet. Humans are adaptable. We always find a way. It's the nothing new argument.
It's a very comforting argument.
Yeah.
And it serves a real psychological function.
Yeah.
It tells us that the future is going to look basically like the past, just with better gadgets.
Right. It's a safety blanket. But today, we're going to take that safety blanket and we'll run it through a shredder because we are diving into a piece of work that argues that the nothing new argument isn't just optimistic, it is structurally flawed. It's a fundamental logic error.
It's factually correct regarding the events of history, sure, but it's structurally wrong regarding the mechanics of history. And that's the distinction we absolutely have to make.
And that brings us to our source material. Today, we're doing something a little special. We are looking at the conclusion, episode 31, titled The Epilogue of the AI Futures series by Jafar Humayun. Now, for anyone who hasn't been following this 30-part series, we should probably set the stage on what AI Futures actually is.
Yes. It's so important to frame this correctly, as Humayun puts it right at the top. It is not a forecast. It is a framework.
I love that distinction. It feels, I don't know, very grounded.
It's essential. The whole point of this material isn't to tell you, in 2029, the stock market will do X. The goal is to audit the systems we take for granted, our economy, education, labor, even our sense of identity, and explore how they might unravel or reshape under the pressure of maximum AI adoption.
So it's not about alarmism.
Not at all. It's about challenging our base assumptions.
And this specific deep dive, the epilogue, is fascinating because it's not really about the robots or the models. It's a study of temporal velocity. It's an audit of the entire history of human adaptation. So the mission for this deep dive is to look at the data, a civilization scale review of how we got here, and ask a very, very uncomfortable question.
Which is?
What happens when the adaptation window collapses?
Precisely. We're isolating one specific variable that has fundamentally shifted, and that variable is time. The core argument here is that while we have navigated huge disruptions before, we have never, ever navigated a pattern breach like this one.
A pattern breach. Okay, so let's get into the timeline because the source material actually lays out this table of civilization-scale disruptions. And when you look at it all at once, the pattern is, well, it's startling.
It is. And to really understand the breach we're facing now, we have to understand the pattern itself, the old deal, if you will.
The old deal. I like that. So what are the terms of this deal?
In every previous disruption in human history, there was a predictable rhythm, a cadence. First, you have stress, a crisis, or a need arises.
Okay.
Then disruption, a new technology or method appears to solve it. Then, and this is the absolute key, a generational buffer, a long, slow period where the new thing integrates into society. Finally, new human roles emerge, stability returns, and we find our new place in the hierarchy.
Let's walk through those timelines then to see this buffer in action, because I think we seriously underestimate just how slow fast used to be. Start us off at the very beginning, the Paleolithic era.
Okay, so we're talking about the shift to what's called the symbolic age. This is roughly, let's say, 10,000 to 50,000 years ago. The driver here, the stress, was climate shifts and just basic survival needs.
And the innovation was fire, language, symbolic thought. The fundamentals.
Yeah, absolute fundamentals. But look at that time frame. This transition took tens of thousands of years.
It's almost not a time frame, it's geology.
It practically is. We moved from nomadic survival patterns to developing myths, complex tools, oral culture. But it happened so unbelievably slowly that it wasn't even social change as we think of it. It was biological and cultural evolution, moving in lockstep.
Right. You didn't wake up one day and realize you needed to learn language by Friday to keep your status in the tribe.
Exactly. If you were alive then, the world your great-great-grandfather lived in was functionally identical to the world your great-great-grandson would live in, There was zero perceptible temporal velocity. Adaptation wasn't a choice, it was just a drift.
Okay, so let's move forward. The Neolithic Revolution. This is the big one, right? Farming. The moment we stopped running and started building fences.
The invention of agriculture and animal domestication. This was driven by food instability, the extinction of megafauna. We simply couldn't just hunt anymore. We had to build a system.
And this changed everything. I mean, it created settlements, trade, property, war, hierarchy, the modern world, in a sense.
It absolutely did. But again, look at the clock. That transition took somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 years to fully play out.
Wow. When you just say it like that, 3,000 years.
Think about that. That's thousands of years for social structures to settle. A hunter-gatherer tribe didn't just become a city-state overnight.
No.
It was a slow, painful morphing of roles. It created farmers and artisans and priests, sure, but it took all that time for the hierarchy to make sense. It allowed for the gradual accumulation of myths, laws, and religions to explain why some people suddenly owned land and others didn't.
So the disruption was massive, but it was diluted by time. It was spread so thin over the generations that nobody really felt the shockwave.
Exactly. The system absorbed the shock over millennia. Now, let's speed it up a little. The Bronze Age, the first empires.
Okay, now we're looking at what, maybe 500 to 1,000 years for that period of change?
Roughly, yeah. The stress was resource scarcity and the need for scale. And the innovation here was writing, administration, centralized rule.
Which created the first bureaucrats.
It created scribes, professional soldiers, tax laborers. But still, 500 years is a lot of lifetimes. You have 25, 30 generations to get used to the idea of a king.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Even the Axial Age, philosophy, ethics, the creation of civic identity, the source puts that at 300 to 500 years.
Correct. And these were profound shifts in human consciousness, but they had centuries to bake in. Now, let's jump to the one everyone likes to cite in these debates.
A printing press.
The printing press.
The classic example. People thought books were evil, and look, we survived.
We did. But the context matters more than the event itself. The printing press broke the monopoly on knowledge held by the elites and the church. It created the possibility of mass literacy. It eventually created the very concept of public opinion.
So how long did that integration actually take?
About 100 to 150 years.
See, that's so interesting because when we look back at history books, it feels instantaneous. Gutenberg prints the Bible and boom, suddenly everyone's reading and the Reformation happens. But you're saying it was a century and a half?
Yes, that's 3, 4, maybe 5 generations. It absolutely challenged authority, no question. It caused wars and massive social upheavals. But in terms of the labor market and the deep social structure, you had over a century to adjust education and cultural expectations.
You had time to invent the concept of a school as we know it today.
You had time to build the entire infrastructure of literacy. The idea that every child should learn to read was a radical concept that took generations to normalize.
So if you were a scribe who lost his job copying manuscripts to the printing press, yeah, that sucked for you.
Terribly. Your skills became obsolete.
But your great-grandchildren, they were born into a world where books were just a normal part of life. They couldn't imagine a world without them.
Exactly. The society adapted by replacing the people, essentially, over generations. The generational buffer did all the heavy lifting.
Which brings us to the Industrial Revolution. This is usually the clincher in the "we'll be fine" argument, the ultimate proof of human adaptability.
The Industrial Revolution is the most important comparison because it was the last time we automated muscle and process at a planetary scale. We moved from feudal systems to capitalism, from fields to factories. It was a total rewiring of human existence.
And the time frame there, how long did that take?
About 80 to 100 years, from the first widespread steam engines to the mature assembly lines and electrification.
Okay, so let's really pause on this one. 80 to 100 years.
This is the crucial point that Humeon makes in the source material. Even this massive, violent, world-breaking disruption, which totally rewrote the human experience, still had a generational buffer.
Explain that. How does the buffer work here?
Okay, so if you were born in, say, 1750 as a master weaver in a cottage industry, and then the power loom arrived, yes, your life was completely disrupted.
Your livelihood was destroyed.
You might have suffered immensely. You might have become a Luddite and smashed the machines in protest.
Right. You didn't necessarily retrain to become a steam engineer. You just lost.
You lost. Your world ended. But your children, or more likely your grandchildren, they were born into the new reality. They were raised to be wage laborers. The entire education system changed to support this. We literally invented the modern classroom to create compliant factory workers.
Punctuality, bells, rows of desks, rote memorization.
All of it. It's a factory for making factory workers. The point is the adaptation window was still wider than a single human lifespan. The change happened across generations, not within one.
That's a really stark way to put it. We survived because we had time to die out and be replaced by a version of us that fit the new machine.
In a systems-level way, yes.
Yeah.
We built the bridge to the industrial age while we were walking on it, but we had a very long time to pour the concrete. The trauma was absorbed by the buffer of time.
And then we hit the digital age. Computers, the internet.
Right. The context here. Information overload, the slowness of analog systems, the innovation, computing the internet, abstraction of information. The time frame tightens dramatically here. We're looking at 30 to 40 years.
Which is basically one career length.
Exactly. For the very first time in human history, the adaptation window tightened to roughly the length of a single human working life. You could start your career dictating memos to a secretary and end it sending emails on a BlackBerry or an iPad.
And that was incredibly stressful. I mean, people talk about the stress of the digital transition all the time. The 90s and 2000s felt like a total whirlwind.
It was stressful, no doubt, but it was still just about manageable. You had 30 years to become a knowledge worker. Society had 3 decades to invent new roles like social media manager or SEO specialist. We had time to wire the schools, to teach a generation to type.
So if we synthesize this historical norm, this old deal, the bottom line is that in every past era, the adaptation window was wide enough to allow for structural integration. Even when it was tight, like the digital age, there was a path. There was time.
Correct. The comfort in this pattern is that we always had time to recalibrate. Our institutions, schools, laws, governments, they could eventually catch up. They are lumbering beasts, but the target they were aiming for stood still long enough for them to take aim and fire.
And now we get to the epilogue.
Now we look at the variable of time today, and the pattern breaks.
So let's look at the current AI disruption through this exact same lens. We've watched the timeline shrink from 5,000 years to 1,000 to 100 to 30. What is the time frame we are dealing with now?
According to the framework in AI Futures, the current cycle for this level of scalable synthetic cognition is 5 to 10 years total.
5 to 10 years.
And that is arguably generous. We are seeing major model updates, true generational leaps in capability every 6 to 9 months.
Compare that to the Industrial Revolution's 80 years.
It's a different category of event. It's not just faster, it's a phase shift. We have moved from historical velocity to something approaching terminal velocity. And this is where we have to talk about Humayun's concept of structural friction.
Okay, define that for us. Structural friction.
Structural friction is what happens when the technological system changes faster than the human social system's capacity to recalibrate. Think about our core institutions. Think about education. How long does it take to update a national high school curriculum to be relevant?
Oh, God. I don't know. 10 years, at least. First, you have to decide what to change, then you form committees, then you write textbooks, then you have to train the teachers.
Right. 10 to 20 years. Governments, education systems, legal frameworks, they operate on these decadal cycles. That is their clock speed. They're designed for stability, not for agility.
And the technology is now operating on a 6-month cycle.
Exactly. So you have one mechanism AI that is evolving at hyperspeed, interacting with social institutions that are moving at glacial speed. The gears don't just grind, they strip each other bare. This is the conditional framing the episode discusses. If the system changes faster than we can adapt, the result isn't adaptation, it's a pattern breach.
A pattern breach. That sounds, well, significant doesn't quite cover it.
It's not about doom, it's about physics. It's a system dynamics problem. There is no generational buffer. There's barely a yearly buffer. We're being asked to adapt to civilization-level shifts multiple times within a single decade.
It's like, imagine the shift from the farm to the factory, but it happens between your breakfast and your lunch.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then the shift from the factory to the internet happens between lunch and dinner.
So the old wait-and-see approach is structurally broken.
It doesn't work. The wait period is now longer than the change period. By the time you have analyzed the impact of GPT-4 and convened a committee and written a report, and gotten it approved.
GPT-5 is already obsolete, and we're on to something completely different.
You're always reacting to a world that no longer exists.
So the nothing new fallacy is wrong because the mechanism of adaptation, which has always been time is broken, we don't have the luxury of letting our kids or even our future selves figure it out.
The variable has collapsed. We're in a state of what the source calls temporal compression. And the human brain, our social structures, They just aren't wired for this.
Yeah.
We crave stability. We're built to find a new normal. But the framework argues there is no new normal coming. There is only continuous, accelerating change.
But there's another layer to this, isn't there? It's not just the speed, it's the nature of what the technology is actually doing. The source material talks about the human value loop divergence.
Yes, this is the second major pattern breach. We have to look at what's called the guarantee of utility.
Okay, let's unpack that phrase, guarantee of utility. What does it mean?
Look back at our history list. Let's start with fire. Fire is an incredibly powerful tool, right? It changed everything. But it requires a wielder. It needs a human to start it, to feed it, to direct it, and to control it.
Right. It's a force multiplier, but the force has to start with us.
Exactly. Now, the printing press. It requires a reader. It requires a writer. The utility of the press is completely locked. It's inert until a human mind interacts with it.
And the factory.
The factory required an operator. Even the most automated assembly line in the 1900s needed teams of humans to maintain the machines, to supervise the flow, to perform quality control, to do all the fine motor tasks the machines couldn't.
So the historical pattern has always been a new tool appears, humans learn to use that tool, and then humans leverage the tool to create value. The human is a necessary component.
Exactly. Previous disruptions automated muscle or an automated process, but they always preserved the necessity of human intent and oversight at the core of the loop. The human was the looper, the thing that closed the circuit of value.
And AI is different.
AI is profoundly different. We are now facing what the framework calls structural decoupling of utility.
Okay, that sounds very technical. What does that mean in plain English?
It means the system is gaining operational independence. AI is starting to perform the cognitive tasks humans used to do, analysis, creation, decision-making, even strategy, without the human in the loop.
Without the human.
It doesn't necessarily need you to maintain or create value. A fully autonomous AI agent can be given a broad goal, say, optimize this entire global supply chain, or write, debug, and deploy the code for this new application. And it can analyze the data, write the code, deploy the application, and then iterate on it, all without a human touching the keyboard.
So unlike the farmed factory shift where labor was transferred, you stopped plowing with an ox and started welding on an assembly line, this acts as a displacement without a clear, necessary destination for the displaced worker.
That is the core of it. That is the no guaranteed role concept from the episode.
Yeah.
Or, to use the more precise language, the structural decoupling. In the past, the new technology created a vacuum that only a human could fill. The factory created a fundamental need for machine operators. AI is different because it can fill its own vacuums. It doesn't inherently create a new role for a human operator because in many cases, it operates itself.
That is a fundamental break in the social contract of technology. I mean, that contract has always been, I, the tool, will make you more productive. This feels like it's saying, I will be productive instead of you.
And that is the pattern breach. We just assume there will be new jobs because there always have been new jobs. But that assumption relies on a hidden premise.
Which is?
That humans hold a monopoly on high-level cognition. When synthetic cognition becomes scalable, cheap, and autonomous, that monopoly ends. And the economic logic that's built on that monopoly starts to dissolve.
I want to dig into this operational independence a bit more because it leads us to one of the most fascinating and honestly slightly mind-bending metaphors in the source material, the bridge builder.
Ah, yes. The mechanics of change. This is such a crucial concept to grasp if we want to understand why this moment feels so fundamentally different from the past.
So historically, humans were always the bridge builders.
Right. Think about the transition to the digital age. Who built the internet?
We did. Humans did. Programmers, engineers, technicians.
Who wrote the HTML protocol? Who laid the thousands of miles of fiber optic cables across the Atlantic? Who designed the routers and the servers and the user interfaces?
People. Very smart people, but people nonetheless.
We were the architects of the transition. We built the bridge to the next era. And because we built it, we understood it. We were the adaptation layer. We were the ones actively adapting the world to the new technology because we were the ones installing it, piece by piece.
And now?
Now we're beginning to automate the adaptation layer itself.
You meaning that AI is building its own bridge?
Exactly. AI is starting to iterate, optimize, and deploy its own updates. It writes its own code better than many human programmers. It can design more efficient chip layouts. It discovers new strategies for problem solving in games or science that no human ever programmed into it. We're seeing models that can improve other models.
So the system is building the bridge to the next era for itself.
And it is potentially crossing that bridge without us. Or at the very least, crossing it without waiting for us to understand how the bridge even works. We're not reading the blueprints anymore.
That's the redundancy of the adaptation role. We are no longer the architects. We are what are we? The passengers? The cargo?
The subjects.
Mhm.
We are subjects of the transition, not the drivers of it. This is a critical distinction. If you are the driver of the car, you control the speed. You can slow down if the road gets bumpy or there's a sharp turn ahead.
But if you're a subject.
If you are a subject, you just feel the G-force. You're pinned to the back of your seat.
And that explains the vertigo so many people are feeling. It's not just that things are changing fast. It's that we don't feel like we're the ones turning the wheel anymore. We are in the back seat, and the car is accelerating, and we can't see the driver.
Correct. And because we are not driving, we cannot rely on our old maps. Our historical experience is no longer a reliable guide. This brings us to the psychological trap that the episode warns about so clearly.
Resilience versus delusion.
Yes. We have this deep cultural narrative of resilience. Humanity is resilient. We are survivors. And we wear that idea like armor. We think it protects us.
But the framework here warns against something called historical recency bias.
It's the unquestioned belief that because we survived the steam engine, we will automatically survive the silicon mind. It is a profound logic error. It is like saying, well, I survived a fall from a 6-foot ladder yesterday, so I will definitely survive a fall from a cliff tomorrow.
The mechanics of the fall are completely different. The height is different. The forces involved are different. The outcome is not comparable.
Exactly. Thinking we'll figure it out is a dangerous assumption when the timeline for figuring it out has all but vanished. The source argues that if we don't recognize the time compression, we aren't being resilient. We are being delusional. We are waiting for a generational buffer that simply does not exist in the system anymore.
The market isn't going to save us, right? That's the other part of this, the incentive structures. We can't just hope that corporations will be nice and slow down for our benefit.
The market is an optimization machine. It's a paperclip maximizer for profit. It optimizes for speed, for scale, and for efficiency. It doesn't reward human preservation. There is no line item on a quarterly balance sheet for maintain generational stability or middle-class comfort.
So if an AI can do the job cheaper, faster, and more reliably than a human, the logic of the market dictates that it will do the job.
The economic logic of speed is absolutely ruthless. The entire goal is the elimination of friction. And in this new equation, the human, with our need for sleep, our slow learning curve, our demand for a salary, our emotions, our bathroom breaks, we are the friction.
Oof, we are the friction. That hits hard. It makes you feel, I don't know, obsolete.
It's supposed to land with weight. But, and this is absolutely vital to understand, the AI Futures Framework isn't about inducing despair. It's about inducing clarity. It's about trading a comforting delusion for a difficult reality.
Right, and the source material is very specific about the language we should be using to have this conversation. It says, stop using words like doom or the end.
Those words are unhelpful. They are emotional, not analytical. They shut down the part of the brain we need to use most right now. If you think it's the end, you just give up. You stop thinking. Instead, we should be using terms like structural departure and systemic synchronization.
Structural departure. That sounds like a flight taking off from an airport.
And that's the idea. It means we are leaving the old structure, the one based on a labor-for-income economy and a human cognitive monopoly. We are departing that reality. It's not the end of the world. It's the end of that specific world.
And systemic synchronization, what does that mean?
That means we need to get our social systems in sync with the new technological reality, rather than just fighting it or ignoring it. We keep asking the wrong question. We ask, how will AI help me do my current job better?
When the real question might be.
The reality might be, the very concept of your job is dissolving, and we need to synchronize with a new system for distributing resources and finding purpose.
We're trying to fit a jet engine onto a horse-drawn cart.
And we're wondering why the cart is shaking itself to pieces. We need to stop trying to fix the cart and start asking what a vehicle looks like that is actually built around this new engine.
It's a massive reality check. We have to look at what the source calls the marrow of the system.
That is the phrase. The core issue isn't the technology. It's not the large language models or the neural networks. The core issue is the economic and social logic that assumes humans are the permanent necessary engine of value. That logic is the marrow. And that is what is being dissolved by this new solvent.
So let's try to synthesize this for everyone listening. We've covered the history of disruption, the collapse of the time buffer, the decoupling of human utility, and the automation of change itself. As we wrap up this deep dive into the epilogue, and really this audit of the whole 30-part series, where does that leave us?
It leaves us with a clear mandate to stop looking backward for comfort. The entire momentum of this deep dive, and the series as a whole, comes from the sobering realization of temporal compression.
And the old rules of wait and see are gone. They're off the table.
They are structurally non-viable. You cannot play a game of turn-based strategy like chess when your opponent is playing a real-time shooter.
That is a perfect analogy. We're sitting there, contemplating our next move, waiting for our turn.
But the game isn't turn-based anymore. It never will be again.
The wait period implies you have time to observe, analyze, and then react. But if the environment changes before you can even finish your analysis...
You are always lagging. You are permanently out of sync. You are reacting to a ghost.
You know, the episode ends with a really provocative thought. It's a question that just sort of hangs in the air, doesn't give an answer, which I think is precisely the point.
It is the central question of our time. It's a question this entire series has been building towards.
If the rhythm of history has always given us generations to find our place in a new world, how do we respond when the world changes faster than our ability to even ask where we fit?
That is the challenge. We are used to having the answer before the test is over. Now, the test itself is being rewritten while we are still trying to write our names on the paper.
It's humbling, but I think it's also a call to action. Not to burn the machines, we can't put that genie back in the bottle, but to wake up, to stop assuming things will just work out the way they did in 1850 or 1995.
Awareness is the first step. Analytical recognition. If we stop banking on the nothing new fallacy, if we accept the pattern breach, then we can finally start having the real conversation.
Which is?
The conversation about what human purpose looks like when it isn't defined by necessary labor. What a society looks like when intelligence is a utility like electricity, not a scarcity. What we value when value is no longer coupled to human effort.
That is a massive conversation, maybe the most important one we will ever have as a species.
It is. And as we close out this deep dive, I just want to echo the final framing from Jafar Humayun and the AI Future series, because I think it captures the spirit of this whole endeavor perfectly.
Please.
Thank you for joining us for this 20-part journey through the AI Futures framework. The systems are shifting. The maps are being redrawn. Our goal was never to provide the answers, but to ensure we are finally asking the right questions.
That's it. We need to ask better questions.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned, stay curious, stay systemic. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Thank you.